Okay. Yeah. So, yeah, thank you very much for coming. And we pray for Allah that this session will be like a good session so we can learn and can get good information about our topics. As you know, like today we are going to give you some update about recent Islamic section symmetry at Smithfield. And as well, we have Brother Bilal and Imam Abdullah. They will give you more information about other topics about the wills, and especially in terms of Sharia and how it is important to have the will, especially in a country such as Australia, because there is many laws here, and you should all know about it. And it's very important. Anyway, I'm not going to talk about it. I will leave it to Brother Bilal and Imam Abdullah. So, back to our Smithfield Memorial Park project. As you know, like we have started this project almost 3 years ago. And I remember the first community consultation meeting we conducted in this hall here. And we had almost like 150 leaders at that time, and come to discuss and consult every single detail of this project. I remember at that time it was very heated conversation and like consultation, because it is very big a project, and at the same time, at that time we didn't have that experience on how to conduct such a project. But alhamdulillah, by the willing of Allah, okay? By the willing of Allah, like the Islamic Society have conducted the Adelaide Cemetery Authority. We first met with the brother around now, so we can call him brother, and to start this milestone since that time. And you know, when you are dealing with the government, nothing is easy. Every single word in the contract you have to like clarify it and make different meaning, and we have to change it here and go to the lawyers and back to the lawyer firms and come to the minister and go to the CEO and do a lot of this stuff. But alhamdulillah, finally we get it and we sign the contract and we get the approval, and we have the land and we have the Smithfield Islamic section there, and we, alhamdulillah, we secured so far 1,000 graveyard for the Muslim community at the Smithfield. So this really big milestones, big project, very important. And inshallah, after I give you more information, you will see how important for the, like not only for the Islamic societies, for every single Muslim in this state, inshallah. Okay, so I don't know if some of you have seen this initial design. As you can see here, so when we start talking about the Smithfield that area, the first condition we put it for the Adelaide Cemetery Authority is to secure land to build a mosque there, because you know how important to have a mosque there and washing facility in order to conduct such a big section for Islamic cemetery. So that's why the first initial design we got, like first is the praying room, we call like is a mosque here, and plus the car park. And of course, this will lead to the first 1,000 burial plot at the moment. If anyone has been at Smithfield before, so you can know this currently the Smithfield corner of Main North Road, and this the current Smithfield Memorial Park. And we have at the moment like small section for the Islamic community as well. At the moment we are using it because this one was not ready yet, but inshallah this will be in 1 week or 2 weeks, or already being ready now. And then I'll explain to you how it's going to be it. So if you go to the Smith Road, you pass the first entrance of the current Memorial Park, and then you go out maybe 150 meters or 100 meters, you see this project here. And then we have like current photo, not just design, so you can like figure out exactly how the current place. So this is exactly the current space now. There is more. This photo, I think, 1 month old or 2 months old. So this the main nose here, and then when you go all the way, you see this the current memorial part. And here there is another Islamic section, the current one that we are using at the moment. But if you go further, like 150 meters, you see this new development land. This our section now at the moment. The mosque will be almost here, and then this the walkway to the cemetery, and the car park will be all around in this area. But because this kind of a project takes a long time, that's why we have something called temporary car park until we build the main car park. So the temporary car park is this one here. It will fit at the moment about 50 cars, maybe less or more. But the current one, the initial one will be about 110 to 120 car park, which is like plenty for now. And the main entrance will be from here, but the current entrance is from this side here. So you go up there and go left and then right, park here, and then, so this from the other side of the building. So this development will be inshallah the mosque, car park, walkway, and the cemetery. Okay, makes sense? Okay, so this photo is almost 2 months old. This as well, like photo as well, 2 months old. This, as I mentioned to you, that this temporary car park. And that's now what we are up to. So during the last 2 months, the ACA started putting the beams for each section, and each beam like fit almost 10 graveyard. Like you see from here to there is 10, and from here to there 10. And we work almost like 3 to 4 months just to put the right direction of Qibla. And Arun asked me to come almost 6 times to just confirm and approve it. And every time I've done the same job, but he keep asking me to come and approve it because to change the direction of Qibla is not easy. But alhamdulillah, so far, like I've got, one time I've got all the imams of South Israel to come with me to approve it. The next time I've got all Imam Riyad and Imam Abdul Salam to go. Next time I told him I cannot take the imams every time, so I've learned now how to do it. I will do it for you. But alhamdulillah, it's all the same, but they've done very good job for it. This the current building at the moment. So as you can see here, the car park, and they start like put all the beams all around. And so far we have 450 grave has already been developed. So we, as you know, the contract is for 1,000 graveyard, but the develop is 450. And to have the 1,000 is easy, but now the most important things is how to buy them now, because to get the 1,000 we have to pay money for it. So far, I will talk about the financial like situation. If you remember 2 years ago, we asked the Muslim community to start purchases on discounted prices for 4,950, if you remember. And we asked for the first 200 will be get discounted. And at that time, only 120 people come, 145 people come and buy as like upfront hand, they pay the 4,950. And because the project get late for almost 1.5 years or 2 years, and some people they couldn't wait because they already paid the money and they want to use it. So the almost 25 people has withdrawn because they want to use it in different place. So we give them money back because we didn't fulfill our promise, because we told them we can have it in 1 year, but as I mentioned to you before, to go through all the details with the government took a really long time. That's why 25 has been withdrawn. So far we have 133 people that paid in full. And the agreement is to have 200 people to pay in full in order to pay the 20% to use the land. We had some kind of agreement because the land is not from our side, from ASA, which told them, but look, you have to be compromised. So let's accept the 133 for now to start using it. They will get back to us like about this proposal. Hopefully they will accept it because they late, not us. At the same time, during that time, till now, we use the old like Islamic section, and we almost 23 burial site has been used. So altogether, 150 to 160, like we almost paid in full, including the current Islamic section. Plus we have 449 people has signed as partial. What I mean as partial, because we gave opportunity for the people to pay by installment, because when we put the right price, 5,950, some of them they said, I would like to have it, but I cannot pay in full, can I pay in like partial? We've got agreement to maximum partial to be 4 years. Okay, that's why we have 49. The 133 people who already paid in full, inshallah, in maybe 2 weeks or 3 weeks from now, we can transfer the site to them. So the site can be under their name. Everyone pay the price in full, they can transfer the site under their name, and they can have document in it, and they have registered online about it, and they can use it whenever they want. But the 49 partial people, we cannot give them the site or transfer the site until they pay in full. Because what's happened is the agreement between the society and ASA, they cannot register any graveyard under the Islamic Society until we pay in full. And as you can see, like this is not like a business here. It's just like agreement between the society and the ASA government. So they will transfer to us the site as long as we pay in full. But we are securing the land. So the land is for the Muslim community, but we have to pay in 4 years at least the 1,000 graveyard. So that's why we really ask you and maybe beg you, like if you can contribute and pay the money, especially for those who pay like in partial, to pay in full. But at the end of the day, if you have the agreement, we cannot like push you or like press you, because this is the agreement, we have to respect it. But for anyone who would like to buy, okay, to pay in full, but if you cannot, we understand. We still like can ask the ACA to be patient, because the full contract is to be in 4 or 5 years. But because we have to use it straight away, and if we finish the first 1,000, we can go back and start asking for the second 2,000. And as you know, the population of the Muslim community here in South Australia is almost 40,000 till 2021. And we assume that it's more than 40,000. So this graveyard could be not enough for it, but if we work hard together to get it, because if every single person who buy for one plot, they can have almost 70 years to use it. So we still have enough time to use it. So it doesn't mean if you buy it now, you can expire very quick now. We have almost 70 or 75 years. So therefore, I would really like to ask you if you can help the society and get this plot or this 1,000 at least very quick. Will be great, just because this will be our legacy for the Muslim community here in South Australia. And to secure a land, like big land like that, wasn't not easy, because there was no land appropriate for cemetery, and many organizations has tried their best, but they couldn't do it because it's very hard, especially with the legals issue and with the council approval and all this stuff. So alhamdulillah, we have like a good opportunity to secure this one and go ahead. So the previous price, like 5,950, was only for the end 2024, because as you know, even per agreement, like every year the price will go almost per like CPI, so between 4 to 6%. So the next price will be 6,200, and that's why we asked you to buy all the price, especially you have from now to the end of December, okay? And if you want to pay per installment, that's fine. But we have to let you know, because you know, as alhamdulillah, the society tried all our best to be transparent, especially when it comes to finance. So that's why we ask you to like go to the previous price and buy till December 2024, because the next year will be 6,200 including GST. Now, So this is the first section of 1,000 graveyard. Okay, and you can see like each section is 10. So what we'd like to have, especially from the beginning, before we start using it, if any family or organization or a group or ethnic group, they would like to buy a section for themselves, because as you know, we are coming all from different countries, and some of us, they have different tradition on how to bury and how to do the funeral service. We respected this one, as long as like it's comply with the Sharia, inshallah. So if any family or organization or ethnic background, they would like to buy, I would suggest to buy like at least like 10 from each section, so they can be together. If you want to buy more, like you go right or like go up, so it's up to you. But the first 103 who already buy in full, they have the ability, inshallah, to start select from the 450 that we have at the moment. But again, I have to reply this one because I know many ethnic background or group or family, they come to society, they want to buy 10 or 15 or 20. We say that's no problem. But to secure the places, okay, you have to understand we cannot transfer the plot until you pay in full. Okay, so that's why we may have some small of issue how to to convince the ACA to secure that places to the that family or that group. But please be like compromise with us as well, because we are trying our best. Because some of them who want 10, for example, and they pay only 20%. Okay, so if we give them these two, for example, and then we have to secure this for them, so then we have to make some such kind of agreement between the society and ACA to secure this place for those family, because they cannot pay in full at the moment. So that's why we're trying like it's going to be some like how to say disagreement, but we have like to work it like hand by hand together as a team to make it sure that every single like group or ethnic group or like organization like to be happy at the end of the day. It's not at the end of the day we are trying to help you guys here, and please like be patient with us about this when we start transferring the site. This actually the current map for the mosque. So this is the car park, and at the moment 102. This is the mosque. The size of the mosque is similar to the size of Marine Mosque, and of course we have the washing facility for the dead body, and include the wudu area and toilet for male and toilet, and as well we have section for the woman as well. When we applied for the council approval to Gola Council at the beginning, we met with the mayor of Gola Council. She was very supportive, and even the staff was very supportive. And subhanallah, when they put it for public notice, I've got a call from the advertiser. The advertiser started making a story about it. Honestly, the advertiser made good article about it, but what happened after that, the neo-Nazi group, especially in the north, they picked the article and they start making a lot of like campaign or protest against the mosque. When we met with the mayor, was zero submission from the public. When they made the article on the advertiser, the next week 28 submission against the mosque. And even some people from Perth and Melbourne, they apply against the mosque. But subhanallah, like we have good planner, and he tried all his best to cover everything from technical point of view. And just like I think last Thursday was the public meeting, only 4 people has come, and they don't have anything like really good against the mosque. Alhamdulillah, we got the approval from planning, and the council has supported. Alhamdulillah, we got the planning, which is the most important things. Alhamdulillah, was really like good outcome. And this, inshallah, the mosque will be Labab. I think we'll have some modification the modification will be just to save some money, because to have such a mosque like that is going to cost a lot. So we are trying, I think, to just not to make it that high, to make it with the ground, because this whole like concrete beams is going to cost a lot. And the back side as well, they have a lot of feature. I think the back side, no one will see it, maybe we'll just make it as a plan. And the other things that we try to make, inshallah, to when the funeral finish, we need a place for the people to give condolences, like as a, not as a center, but as a place like, you know, like we need this kind of thing. So inshallah, we'll try to add it. I don't try, you are not hearing anything about it, okay? You just enter this. So yeah, this from the back side where the people like go straight away to the cemetery. So this will be the back side. This side we're trying to make it lower with the ground and have some kind of pergola or something like a shade for the people to give the condolences. Of course, we take in consideration the male and the female section as well. So this is the back side. So as you can see, there's some feature, maybe we try to minimize it as much as we can just to save money, because at the end of the day, when we start building, because the next step is to apply for the building approval for the council. But building approval is not like as a planning approval. Planning approval is really hard, but building, so if they ask to remove this beam or this line is not a big deal. But we are trying to minimize all like things not necessarily, because it's looking mashallah very fashion, but inshallah we'll try to make it like looking nice from the front, but from the back try to minimize inshallah. Okay, so I think this is a video, am I right? Okay, so this video just show you how it's looking like now. So yeah, this is the entrance from here, so that the temporary entrance, and go by car all the way to the car park. This feels always. So this video from yesterday. And this is the car park. Sorry, the footage from the side. Yeah, so this is the current beams there. Yes, this section from like next to the site where to go to the mosque, then we'll show you this house looking like at the moment. Yeah, and this walkway is called to the mosque. Yeah, sorry, we are not very professional when we doing videos, but inshallah we'll do a proper one, inshallah next time. Okay, cool. Finish? Okay. Alright, this is about the Smithfield Cemetery. Hopefully you get some good information about it. Inshallah, after that, after Brother Bilal and Sheikh Abdullah talk about the wheels, we'll have Q&A session, so we can answer all your questions, inshallah. Jazakumullah khair. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Can you hear me? Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alamin. Wa salatu wa salamu ala Sayyidina Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa man tabi'ahum bi ihsanin ila yawmiddin. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make this gathering blessed and beneficial. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make it easy on the people of Palestine. So before we start, this is my first meeting here in Adelaide. Do usually, like the brothers, the number of the brothers, they outnumber the number of the sisters? Back in Victoria, like the other way around. MashaAllah, most of the events, like the number of the sisters are more than the number of the brothers. Anyways, MashaAllah, way to go to the brothers and the sisters who came. So, Islam, our religion, there is something special about Islam, is that our religion has interfered in every aspect of our life. So when people, they hear about religion, they think that religion is all about going to a place of worship and you pray to God and that's it. But when it comes to our religion as Islam, one of the characteristics of our religion, one of the khasa'is of our Sharia, is that it is something called in Arabic as-shumuliyah. It covers every aspect of our life. So our religion, anything that we do in life, there is an Islamic ruling about it. Even for example, if we walk, there is an Islamic ruling for it. So it is mubah, it is permissible to walk. It is fard, it is obligatory to pray the 5 times prayer. It is forbidden, for example, to drink alcohol. And there is an Islamic rulings when it comes to transactions, when it comes to dealings between humans and humans, or when it comes to dealings between what the people own of assets or wealth or estate and themselves. So there is we will talk inshallah very briefly about the Islamic ruling of will or wasiyah. So before we talk about the Islamic ruling of wasiyah, let's talk about the definition of Islamic wasiyah. So it means in Arabic هي الأمر بالتصرف بعد الموت وبالتبرع بمال أو بعد الموت. So the Islamic wasiyah, the Islamic will, it means that it is a person who will make an arrangement for one's affairs and for one's estate. So when it comes to Islamic will, a person will make an arrangement, for example, where he wants to be buried. Or, for example, who is the imam who will lead the salah on his behalf, like the janazah prayer. Or, for example, who will look after some of his family members. So this is part of Islamic will. And the other part of Islamic will, it is to write and mention 1/3 of his estate were to be distributed. So the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "Ma haqqu imri'in muslimin lahu shay'un yusi fi yabitu laylatayn illa wa wasiyatuhu maktubatun 'indah." The Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam said that every Muslim who has something to leave behind, who has some kind of estate or wealth, would not or shall not go 2 nights or spend 2 nights without his will is written. So based on this hadith, the Islamic scholars, they mentioned that if we are in an Islamic country, it is mustahab, it is strongly recommended to write an Islamic will, except in case if a person, he has taken a personal loan from someone and that loan, like no one knows about it. So in this case, in order to protect the rights of the other person, then it becomes a wajib, it becomes obligatory for that person to write a will about that loan. So this person, if he or she dies after that, then his right of the other person will be paid back to him. Or in case if a person gives him a wadi'ah, if a person gives him a portion of money or a certain amount of money and no one has, like, for example, an evidence about it. So in this case, he needs to write a wasiyah to his family members so that after he passes away, that right, that money will be paid back to the person who gave it to him in the first place. Here we are talking about like in an Islamic country. But when it comes to Australia, inshallah, Brother Bilal, he will give us further details about the procedure and the process. If a person dies here in Australia, the government will appoint an officer to distribute the wealth of the deceased. And that distribution, absolutely, it is not going to be based on the Islamic Sharia. Because of that, here it becomes wajib, it becomes obligatory for every single person to write a will. So that if a person dies or passes away, he or she makes sure that the estate or whatever that person owns goes back or distributed based on what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala pleases. So if a person does not make a will, then what happens? That an officer from the government will distribute the will, and it's not going to be Islamic. So we need to make sure that after we pass away, we need to make sure that our wealth, our estate is distributed in the right way. So when it comes to the secular will or Australian will and the Islamic will. So when we talk about the word wasiyah in Arabic, it refers only to the 1/3 of what we own. So wasiyah, only 1/3. And this 1/3, it is not permissible to distribute it to our relatives. I mean by relatives, to our close relatives who are entitled to inherit from us. So our wealth, it is divided into two parts after we pass away. There is something called at-tarika, like that is 2/3, that would be 66%, and that goes to our close relatives. There are ayat in Surah An-Nisa that talks about how the wealth is distributed. And this goes 2/3 of our estate or wealth. When it comes to 1/3, the remaining 1/3, and that would be 33.33%, this portion or this percentage, the Muslim, the person has the right to distribute it in any way he wants. We will talk what the scholars mentioned, like about the best way to distribute this 1/3. So before the distribution, getting back to Australian will. So the Australian will or the legal will in Australia, it includes the Islamic will and it includes the at-tarika. At-tarika, that is the 2/3 of our wealth. So when we say legal or secular will, it involves everything that we own. This is like the secular or Australian definition of will. When it comes to the Islamic definition of will, it is only 1/3 of what we own. So before the distribution of everything that we own, that person who passes away, the deceased, if he has debts, these debts need to be covered even before the distribution of the wealth, whether it goes to tarika or it goes to wasiyah or 1/3. So we have two kinds of debts. There are debts between the deceased and humans, such as, for example, if a person has debt from someone, he has a certain amount of money, this amount of money has to be paid even before the wealth is distributed. This is one of the examples when it comes to debts between the deceased and other people. And we have another kind of debts that are debts between the deceased and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Such as, if a person he does not pay his zakah while he was alive, he must write in his will that one of the years he did not pay his zakah, so he needs to mention that in the will, and the family members, they need to pay that amount of money where he did not pay. Or for example, if there are kafarat, for example, if a person he makes an oath and he broke his oath, then he needs to do a kafara, like feeding 10 poor people. So it has to be included. Or if a person he did not perform Hajj, like once in his lifetime, so an amount of money, whatever the Hajj costs, in this case, the money is taken from his wealth, and then once everything is covered, when it comes to the debts between the deceased and the humans, and the debts and between Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then what is left, 1/3 can be distributed based on whatever he wishes, and the 2/3 it has to go to the family members. So coming to the 1/3 of what is left of the estate. So here, let's say, for example, the debts are covered, and the 2/3 goes to the family members based on what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in Surah An-Nisa. Then we have 1/3. What the scholars mention. So the scholars mention that the best way for this 1/3 to be distributed, if his family members are poor, then it goes to them. As the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "Innaka intadhara warathataka aghniya khayrun min an tadharahum 'ala yatakaffafuna an-nas." So the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when he was talking to Sa'd bin Abi Waqqas, he told him, if you leave your family members or your inheritors rich, it is better than leaving them poor, asking or begging for other people. So Sa'd bin Abi Waqqas, he wanted to donate all his money. So the Prophet Muhammad said, no, only the 1/3. And even the 1/3 is too much. And from this hadith, the scholars mentioned that we are entitled to distribute 1/3 of our wealth. So if our family members, they are not poor, then we have another option. And the best option for us here where we live in Australia, it is to distribute 1/3 of our wealth to the masjid where we regularly pray, or the organization like manages and organizes that masjid. So this is the best place where we put our wealth. And when it comes, again, 1/3. So back in Melbourne, in the masjid where I used to pray, alhamdulillah, there are like 6 to 7 people I have known so far. So in their will, they have written in their will that, for example, like $20,000, it goes to this masjid after they pass away. And some of them, they put like $30,000 that goes to this specific organization after they pass away. And even there is another, in another masjid, this is like something that I heard. One of the brothers, mashallah, even he did that while he was alive. He gifted his own house to another organization. And in Islam, it is permissible. So this is something called hiba. So while you are alive, you are free to do with your wealth whatever you want. So this brother who gifted his whole house to the organization or to the masjid where he regularly prays, because like his children, they are wealthy, they are rich, they don't need a lot of money, and he wanted something that is ongoing for him after he passes away. So once we donate 1/3 of our wealth, or while we are alive, and when we gift, for example, a part of what we own to the organization or to that place where we regularly pray, there are two evidences about the ongoing reward. So when we do these things, first we are doing it for ourselves. So when we donate something to the masjid, we are not donating it, or we are not giving it to specific people. We are giving it to the community. And after that, a lot of people will benefit from whatever you contributed. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in Surah Yasin, إِنَّا نَحْنُ نُحْيِي الْمَوْتَى وَنَكْتُبُ مَا قَدَّمُوا وَآثَارَهُم. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in Surah Yasin, indeed we give life to the dead, and we record whatever they have done before they die. So وَنَكْتُبُ مَا قَدَّمُوا, like the angels, the two angels will record whatever we have contributed, whatever we have done, whether it is good or bad. And then Allah says, وَآثَارَهُمْ. So the meaning of وَآثَارَهُمْ, the scholars mentioned that the sadaqah, the charity that they have contributed even after they pass away. So this is like an investment for us in the future once we contribute while we are alive. And there is another hadith, like most of you memorize, the Prophet Muhammad said that إِذَا مَاتَ ابْنُ آدَمْ انْقَطَعَ عَمَلُهُ إِلَّا مِنْ ثَلَاثٍ, and one of them صدقة جارية. So the Prophet Muhammad said that once the son of Adam dies, all his actions will come to an end, except three things. And one of them, it is an ongoing charity or an ongoing donation. So based on this hadith and this ayah, it is strongly recommended for us to make an investment for the akhirah. So I'm asking you to donate, not in particular for this masjid, whatever you see for yourself, whatever you see best for yourself, I strongly encourage everyone to do that. So I need to remind you that once we don't write a will, guess what happens? Inshallah, Brother Bilal, he will tell us in details what happens. And I'm not going to talk about the legality, about when it comes to writing wills. Back in Melbourne, so there are a lot of people. Some of them, like, they get married to two women. So the second wife, she lives in a house that he owned long time ago. And from the first wife, he has lots of kids. And he passes away without leaving a will. And then the kids or the children of the first wife, they want to find the house where the second wife, where their stepmother lived in. And there are a lot of complications, and you are already familiar with a lot of different scenarios and cases. We need to make sure that when we pass away, we need our family to make dua for us, not to make dua against us. And the best way to do that, by writing a will. And subhanallah, some of us, we run away from death. Some people, subhanallah, they live in a state of denial. They think that they are going to live forever. So a lot of brothers and sisters, they live here, we ask them, like, why you haven't written a will yet? So the moment they start thinking about writing a will, they get scared of death, or they think, oh, like they are living forever, or they think that, oh, like I am giving what belongs to me to someone else. So this is something that, like the scholars mentioned, like people, they run, what is the haqq that people run away from? It is death. People run away from it, while it is something, it is a fact. And Allah says in the Quran, wherever you are, أَيْنَمَا تَكُونِ يُدْرِكْكُمُ الْمَوْتِ. Wherever you are, a death shall overtake you. Whether you are old, whether you are young, rich, poor, beautiful, ugly, wherever you live, death will come to us. So even if you are healthy, unhealthy, death will come to us. So I strongly recommend everyone to write a will. And inshallah, about the procedure, about the logistics of writing a will, inshallah, our beloved lawyer, he will tell us in details. وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. Firstly, thank you to the Islamic Society of South Australia and Salam Funeral Services, Brother Ahmed and Sister Filza and Imam Abdullah for their informative discussion, and may Allah reward them. I've been asked to talk about Islamic wills, and as you will see here, these are the points that I'd like to cover. What is a will? Why is a will important? What happens if there's no valid will? Can you do a will yourself? Estate versus non-estate assets, essentials, important considerations. What is an Islamic will? So that's the main topic for today. Mirath examples and other estate planning documents. I'd like to start off by saying that I'm a lawyer, but I'm not a scholar or an imam or a sheikh. So whatever I say, I'm going to qualify in that if you have a specific question in relation to your circumstances, the best advice I can give you is you should seek advice from a scholar, from an imam like Imam Abdullah, or another imam who has knowledge in this area. It's a very complex area, so it's important you get advice. With wills, there are two things. You want a will to be done legally, and that's where you seek out advice from a lawyer. But the second thing is you want to make sure that it's consistent with Islamic principles. So that's where you seek out the advice from a scholar. Okay, so firstly, we'll start off with what is a will. So the wasiyya is the Arabic word. A will is basically a legal form which directs what happens to your estate. Now, as you see on the slide, there are some key words. So the wasiyya, will. We have al-musi, which is the testator, the person who writes the will, okay? And then we have a taraka. Imam Abdullah referred to a taraka, which is an estate. Now, I must say that with these words, when you translate into English, you never get a perfect translation. So some words, like wasiyya, Imam Abdullah pointed out that wasiyya actually refers to the 1/3. But the Arabic word for will is wasiyya, and it's hard to come up with another word. So we refer to the will as wasiyya, but that is also the word that is used for the 1/3. I don't want to confuse you, but I just point that out now so that you understand it as we move through the slides. So I've explained what a will is. So basically it directs what happens to your estate, another word for estate, assets, after you pass away. Why is it important? So basically a will is the best way to ensure that your estate, your assets, are distributed how you want them to be. So each of you work hard, you create your wealth over a period of time. I would have thought that all that energy that you put into creating your wealth, you should be able to choose what happens to that wealth, rather than the law. You don't want the law to decide that for you. You should decide what happens to your assets. So the beneficiaries, or waritha, bil Arabi, are the beneficiaries of the people who receive your estate. So your family members, or potentially people other than your family members. Now, moving on to the next slide. Another reason why wills are important is because we get to specify in the will, for example, who are your executors, or al-wasi in Arabic. The executors are the people who pay the debts and funeral expenses, and they distribute the balance of the estate to your loved ones, to your family. It's a very important role. You need to trust that person implicitly. Often a husband will appoint a wife will appoint a husband. Someone might appoint their son or their daughter, or a relative. You can appoint friends, but as I said, you would appoint someone who you trust. I don't want to. We have limited time. I've only got, I think, about 15 minutes, so I can't go into detail. But I'll just mention that there is some difference between the madhahib in terms of who you can appoint. So, for example, they all say, with the exception of Abu Hanifa, you are to choose a Muslim, whereas Abu Hanifa indicated that you could choose a non-Muslim to be the wasi, the executor. But basically my advice to you is if you pick an executor and you specify in the will, it needs to be someone that you trust and that they can actually do the job. They're going to handle the administrative side of things, they've got the language ability, they've got the understanding. Also in a will, a very important thing, if you have children, we can specify who the guardian is, wali amr in Arabic. This is the person who basically will care for your children. They don't control the finances per se, but they will look after your children. You obviously want to have a say in who will look after your children if for Allah something happens to you. It's a very important thing to provide for in a will. You can provide for the funeral plot, the burial, dafan, or for the janazah. And in this case, obviously, the community's put together a very promising project. If, for example, you were to purchase a plot at Smithfield Memorial Park, you can specify that in your will so that there's no confusion amongst your family. I mean, yes, you paid for a plot, and obviously there'll be a document which proves that, but potentially your family might not know, they may forget. With the passage of time, you can specify that in your will. You can also provide things like digital property. Nowadays people have accounts, Facebook account, no, I'm not promoting that by the way, but Facebook account, emails, pictures online, again, not something that I'm promoting, cryptocurrency, Bitcoin, those types of things. So we can control what happens to digital assets as well as other assets. And just remember, estate or assets include things like motor vehicles, property, jewellery, monies in bank accounts, etc. So, moving on to what happens if there's no valid will. This is a very important topic. So basically, if you die without a will, it's called, you basically die intestate, and the laws of intestacy apply. So you don't get to dictate what happens to your assets, the law chooses what happens to your assets. And basically at the moment we have three pieces of legislation. We have the Wills Act, we have the Administration and Probate Act, and we have Inheritance Family Provisions Act. Three pieces of legislation which apply here in South Australia. It's not on the slides, I apologise. Only one of them is referred to, the Administration and Probate Act. As of the 1st of January next year, we will have a new act, a new piece of legislation called the Succession Act 2023, but it takes effect on the 1st of January 2025. And there are some changes, but essentially if, for example, you pass away, you don't have a will, at the moment, the first $100,000, it will be $120,000 as of the 1st of January next year, but the first $100,000 and then the balance, half of the balance of the estate will go to the spouse, and then the other half of the balance will go to the children. So that's what would happen if you have a spouse and children in place. So it's not Islamic, and as Imam Abdullah indicated, we have an obligation. Here in the West, we don't have automatic Islamic inheritance provisions. So if you don't do a will, it's not going to be Islamic. The distribution will not be Islamic. And this, as I mentioned before, the spouse and the children will receive a share each. If they don't exist, then there's a statutory order which applies, which includes parents, brother and sister, grandparents, aunties and uncles, and so on and so forth. So not Islamic. Okay, it's not the end of the world, potentially. Your family would receive your estate, but not in the Islamic shares. However, if you don't have relatives, and this applies to some people in Australia, there's a very good chance that your estate will pass to the government. So you work really hard, then all those assets go straight to the government. If you have relatives, let's say you have some relatives in remote Bangladesh or remote Africa or Syria, do you think that the government here are going to make a bona fide attempt to track down your relatives in that rural province? No. I don't think so, right? So potentially your estate will go to the government as well in that case. Accounts will be frozen. right? So no one, whether it be your partner or your children, will be able to access your bank account or sell the car legally. They might have the keys to the car, but they can't sell it legally. Your accounts will be frozen. So basically, the point of this, and I don't want to dwell on it because we don't have too much time, but if you don't do a will, you are leaving a big mess for your family. That's the truth, right? They'll have to go to get a lawyer to fix the problem. It's going to cost them a lot of money. It's going to take a lot of time. So I'm not just saying this as a lawyer. I've seen it. It creates a lot of heartache for the family. The last thing you want to be dealing with is fixing problems when you're mourning for your loved one, your father, mother, whoever. You can make things so much easier if you do a will. So, do-it-yourself will kit. Okay, so I've talked about the importance of wills. So you're probably thinking, oh yeah, I saw at the post office there was a DIY kit for $30. That's pretty cheap. I may as well go and do that. It's probably cheaper than a meal at the Gang Kebab house or somewhere there. But the reality is, if you do it yourself and you're not a fay, you're not in the know in terms of what is required to be done, you can make mistakes. Now with a DIY kit, it's a very simple format. It says basically print your name, put your address, explain who is to receive the assets. Very, very basic form. It doesn't inquire about your circumstances. It doesn't know who you are, how you own your assets. You could give something away that legally you can't give away. You could leave something out. You could make a mistake. When you sign it, you might not sign in the presence of two independent witnesses at the same time. You make one mistake, the paper's not worth the will's not worth the paper that it's written on, basically. So, okay, you might save some money, but what difficulties will you create for yourself? And the worst thing is no one will know that there's a mistake until after you're gone. And then they have to fix the problem, right? So my advice to you is, if you can afford it, go and get a lawyer to draft the will. It doesn't have to be me, just get a lawyer to draft the will. If you can't afford it, potentially just try to draft something yourself, because something in writing is better than nothing. And then when the time comes, inshallah, when you have the means, you can see a lawyer and get it done properly. So, again, very limited for time, but a lot of people don't know this, estate versus non-estate assets. Basically, anything in your sole name will fall under your will, okay? But if you own a home jointly with your wife or your husband, if somehow something happens to you, the title to that property passes automatically to the surviving spouse. So the will doesn't control what happens to it because it's a joint asset. Superannuation, people think they own their super, they don't own it. It's held in trust by the trustee. And basically when you reach the preservation age, they release the super to you. These are non-estate assets. So again, when I was talking about a DIY kit, someone might do their own will, and they might say, I give my home or my super to my daughter. Well, you can't legally give it away because it's not your asset, right? So that's why it's very important to have an appreciation of the difference between estate assets and non-estate assets. Just some essentials. So if you let's say you do a will today and you get married tomorrow, guess what happens to the will? Right? It's not worth anything. So you have to do another one, unless you do it in contemplation. Divorce can revoke parts of a will. You may need to amend your will. If, for example, you have more children, someone passes away, you create a family trust, commercial structure, you may need to amend your will. So will's not necessarily something that's going to last your lifetime. It would if your circumstances don't change, but if your circumstances change, you may need to review a will. And generally, reviewing a will is not a very expensive exercise if you've already done a will, but generally making some minor changes. Now, a family member can challenge a will. Now, I don't have the time to go through it, but this new act, in some ways, I actually think is a good thing for Muslims because one of the provisions in the new Succession Act is that the court, their primary consideration must be the wishes of the testator, right? So basically, up until now, a family member could challenge a will, not just an Islamic will, any will, if someone was inadequately provided for. But under the new Succession Act, the court is meant to give, their primary consideration is meant to be the testator's wishes. So if the testator's wishes were to be that they wanted an Islamic will, I'm hoping that it's going to be much harder for people to challenge wills once this act comes into play. So something, food for thought, something to think about. Now, the Wasiya al-Islamiyya, again, wording is a bit problematic here, but basically, let's just talk about Islamic will. Now, fortunately, alhamdulillah, we had Imam Abdullah talk about the Islamic points, the Islamic aspect to this. I'm not going to spend too much time here, but basically there are 35 verses in the Quran, and there are 3 verses which actually stipulate those provisions. And the 2 main ones are basically verses 11 and 12 in Surah Nisa. So in the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, تِلْكَ حُدُودُ اللَّهِ وَمَنْ يُطِعِ اللَّهَ وَرَسُولَهُ يُدْخِلْهُ جَنَّةً. So basically these are the limits set down by Allah. Those who follow them will be admitted to Jannah. Now, preceding this verse, verses 11 and 12, are all the distributions about what happens. A mother receives a 6, or a father receives a 6, or 2 girls, 2 daughters receive 2/3, one daughter receives a half. So this is the verse which comes after those distributions. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, these are the limits that I've set down for you. You should follow them. It's an obligation, right? We also have the hadith, and alhamdulillah, Imam Abdullah mentioned this hadith. If you have assets, it's not possible to let 2 nights pass without writing a will about them. This is a Sahih Bukhari, it's a proper hadith, right? So in terms of the Islamic will, what are the general rules? Again, Imam Abdullah mentioned this. So debts are to be paid first, the funeral expenses are to be paid first, and then the debts, and then the bequest, so the third, which is referred to as wasiyah, and then the balance is to be distributed amongst the heirs, right? The Islamic heirs. So, the Islamic distributions depend entirely on the circumstances of the family. It's quite complex. It's quite a complex area, and the fractions change depending on who's in the family. If someone passes away, you have to rehash all the distributions. In the wills that I draft, I always make sure that the distributions are spelled out. There is a mistake in terms of, and I will have to finalise this, but there is a bit of a mistake. Some people out there, they'll refer to some schedule on the internet and they say, I leave my estate in accordance with Islamic principles, full stop. What are Islamic principles? Which madhab? Sunni, Shia, what? What do you think a judge is going to understand what that means? The judge is not going to understand what that means. You need to spell out what the distributions are. And sorry, just to go back, and as I emphasised before, you get advice from an imam or a sheikh or a scholar, okay? We really don't have the time, but just as a really quick example, this is only for demonstration purpose, just so you get a feeling for what's involved, okay? Just to add some context to this discussion. So example 1, husband dies, leaving parents, wife, 1 son, 1 daughter, and siblings. So firstly, siblings get nothing because when you've got a male heir, they trump any siblings, right? So brothers and sisters get nothing. Mother, 1/6. Father, 1/6. Wife, 1/8. And the balance, so 1/6 and a 6 is a third. A third plus an eighth is 11 over 24. The balance is 13 over 24. Goes to the children. Now, you have to give, Islamically, you have to give 2 portions to the son, or the sons or son, and 1 portion each to the daughter. And just remember, it's not just like a gift because they're guys, they get more, lucky them, and go and spend the money. It doesn't work like that. The men are the maintainers and protectors, and they have responsibilities for the women, right? So with their bigger share comes a greater financial obligation on them. They have to support their family. Example 2, wife dies leaving, and sorry, just to explain, so the son gets 13 over 36, right? And the daughter gets basically half, 13 over 72. Second example, wife dies leaving only 2 daughters and a sister. So daughters get 2/3, because in Surah Nisa it says 1 daughter gets half, 2 daughters get 2/3. So 2 or more daughters get 2/3, right? Now, with this example, some of the madhab basically would say that the balance of 1/3 would sorry, I've skipped, sorry. So 2/3 to the daughters and then 1/3 to the remaining sister. In the third example, a son dies leaving only parents and no siblings. So you've got basically, normally a mother and a father would receive 1/6 each, okay, depending on the circumstances. In this case, the mother would receive 1/3 and the father receives 2/3 because there are no siblings. If there were siblings, that would change. In an Islamic will, you can also provide for appointment of guardian. I did mention this in the before, it's very important. Don't assume that the school will basically automatically deal with the Department of Child Protection and they'll just put the child with the family that's been nominated by the parents to the school. The only legal way to ensure that your children will be looked after by someone who you choose is to put it in the will, okay? Heaven forbid if your if your child's put with any old family that may not have the same tenets or requirements that you would have for your children. Then Islamic burial, we touched on this before. We can include Islamic burial provisions in the will, and you can specify where you are to be buried. We also specify things like the body is to be washed and wrapped in accordance with Islamic principles, prayed for, face the direction of the Qibla, etc., etc. This can all be included in the will. Because of the limited time, I think I'm going to have to leave it there. I'll just finally mention, a lot of people do wills, but they forget about the other important documents. Power of attorney, wakalah, and advanced care directive. The advanced care directive, you can do it yourself. You don't have to have a lawyer do this. You can download the form online. Very important for Muslims. You can specify things like, if I'm put in an aged care centre, I want to make sure I eat halal food. I want to make sure my hijab is maintained. If, I want to be close to a mosque. I want to be close to family. We can specify things that are unique to us in this document. Power of attorney, obviously, these documents apply before death, but if you lose your mental capacity, you can specify who will be able to access your bank account, who will be able to sell the car. This is very important because Allahu A'lam, we don't know what's going to happen to us whilst we're here, before we die. These are two very important documents. I hope that's a half-decent summary of this topic, and I'm sorry that we've had to rush through it. I'm happy to address any questions later on. Jazakallah khair.
All right, thank you very much, Brother Bilal. As we promised you, so we will open, inshallah, for Q&A session. And as you can see, any question about the Smithfield Cemetery or Wales or any Sharia about the Wales, Brother Bilal, and Brother Abdullah, can you please come to the table? And inshallah, Sister Noor and Sister Firza will facilitate the microphone. If anyone would like to ask any question, please raise your hand, and inshallah, Noor or Firza will, okay. Yep. All right, good. Go ahead.
Thank you so much for your informative presentation, and thanks to Mr. Bilal for the presentation. Actually, I have a question and a comment. So my first question is about the grave itself. So if I fully pay the price of the grave, can I sell it to another person later on? So that's my first question. My comment, and please don't consider this as a criticism. It's more like a comment or a suggestion or something that I wish to bring to your attention. It's about the mosque. I of course understand the value of establishing mosque in a country like Australia. Any mosque established here is a great achievement for our society. However, I'm wondering about the value of establishing mosque in such a remote area. In my understanding or my opinion, that mosques are mainly meant to be used for the daily 5 prayers. Now we are going to establish a mosque in such a remote area. I don't really know about the population there, but I've been to Smithfield a few times. I think it's a very remote area, nobody lives there. So I don't really think the mosque would be utilized for the daily 5 prayers. That's one thing. The second thing is that one day, inshallah, maybe after 10, 15 or 20 years, the southern graves will be fully utilized, and I don't really think anyone would go there even to do janazah prayers or whatever. So I just want to bring that to your attention. Perhaps we can utilize our limited resources to secure or to fully secure the graveyard for the Muslim community. And again, Ahmad, you mentioned that another purpose of the mosque is to provide some shaded area for people to make condolences to the deceased family. I have attended funerals here in Adelaide, and actually the number of people who were in these funerals were not that great number. They were maximum 20 or 30 people. So I don't really think it was investing in making shaded area and this kind of facilities for such a limited number of people. And again, it's not criticism, it's just a concern or something that I wanted to bring to your attention. Thank you so much.
Excellent. Thank you very much, brother. I will answer very quick your valuable questions. May Allah reward you. For the first question you asked, if you have a fully approved site, can you sell it to other one? Yes, because it is your asset. But as long as you sell it to other Muslim person, this is the only condition we have. Yes, you can do it. For the second question regarding the mosque, I don't know if you are aware that Alhamdulillah, the Islamic Society secured under a place for worship at the north areas called Elizabeth. We bought a place for $600,000. We secured so far $300,000, and in 2 months from now we have to collect under 300. Why we are focusing in the north area? Because based on the Statistic Bureau office during 2021, we have almost 40,000 Muslims in South Australia. 14,000 Muslims living in the Elizabeth and Salisbury area, and we don't have enough mosque for them. And the mosque we have for the Elizabeth one is very tiny places. We hope inshallah we can buy another house next to it, inshallah, demolish and build another mosque. And the mosque for Smithfield, just for let you know, based on the statistic as well, most of our Muslim community they're moving to the north area because of the life crisis at the moment, and because everything is going up, especially with the price of the houses and the rented, and that's why they're moving to the north. And in addition to that, the area around the Smithfield Cemetery, the government just put it for zoning. This means zoning, this will be a lot of places or land to buy to build the house. In addition to that, and no one knows about it, I've just been informed last week about it, that we are able to buy a land to build a school there as well. And this, as you know, most of the schools at the moment is struggling, especially the Islamic school, because they couldn't find any place to buy. So there is a lot of high potential opportunity for the Muslim community to move there. And alhamdulillah, we are growing. Every 6 years, there is under 10,000 Muslim community members coming to South Australia. So that's why we don't need this place. Of course, we need it. At the moment, it is a remote area. Of course, there is no one living there. Do you think in the future the people will come? Our expectation, yes. Okay, because of the zoning, because we don't have any place to build any school all around the area. Most of the schools at the moment, the county school, they are begging us to find a place to build a school, and the only place will be there. So that's why it is high potential that people will live in here. Regarding how when we are going to build them, we are not going to build it tomorrow. Okay, but at least we secure the land, we secure the council approval, we secure the design, we secure everything. As long as the community start asking, can we start build the mosque? Inshallah, we start building. The other option here, the Elizabeth, we can do something in the meantime until the community go up and asking for it. But at least we secure the land. Hopefully, I answered your question. Okay, different question. Okay. Yes.
I can.
Maybe use a different tone because this micro is not.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. I've got two questions. The first one, since you have got already the allocation of the 1,000, there are some communities that have started paying already. What arrangement do you have for those communities to come and probably select a section or something like that? That's one, if you can tell me. But the second one is that In the previous presentations, you mentioned some efforts about having levels of the graveyard, each plot having 3. I don't know how far have you gone about that and about there. Okay.
Good. Alright, so regarding the arrangement, Jazakallah khair for the question, and I'm very happy you asked the question in front of Aaron, because we have discussed this one just 2 days ago. All I asked the ACA to be like flexible with the community at the moment, because it is a new project for us. And there's a lot of things we need to take it in consideration in this project, especially for those community who buying, for example, 14 sites and just pay for only 2 sites, okay, in full. So we need to secure the 14 sites next to each other, because the community buy to be next to each other, okay? And the agreement between the society and the ACA that we cannot transfer the site, the full site, until they fully pay. But we already agreed to the pay in partial for maximum 4 years. So all we need to ask the community at least to pay 20 to 30% of this amount of 14 sites to secure at least next to each other, but we cannot transfer until we pay in full. This is going to be like a bit headache for us, but we have to compromise it, because we promised the community at the beginning and we are not going to break our promise. But all we beg the community, especially for those who buy it, if you can split the payment, even we have the agreement, if you can split it will be good. If you cannot, so that's our agreement, we are not going to change. Regarding the second question, subhanAllah, I just asked Filza to put a video about the 3rd level. At the moment we go to have the 3rd level as per agreement, there is no change. But the only issue we have, as you know, when someone passes away, the people who's going to put them in the lahat, they will jump inside the hole and put them in, lay down and change the direction to Mecca and so on. But when we have the 3 levels, by law, especially by the South Australian law, no one can go in the hole with less than 1.2 meters. Am I right, Room? Okay. So anything more than 1.2 meters, okay, there should be different technique on how to put the body down. So that's why we work together with the ACA to put like a certain technique to put the body and make the direction to the Mecca from the top, and then go a little down, but call it like a lift or something like that, automatic lift, and go down to the lift. So this is the only technique. And then we have to show you how the video is looking like, because it's something new to our community. We haven't done it before, but because it is by law, we have to abide by law and follow the instruction. Inshallah, Filza will be ready in 1 second to put this video. Are you ready or not yet? Not yet. Okay, inshallah one will be ready. Ah, yes, see here. Can you put it? Okay. Alright, so inshallah one will be ready, we'll go there, but we'll go with the next question, inshallah.
Assalamu alaikum. Thank you for your information. I just had a question for Imam Abdullah and Bilal. So with a lot of students using HEX, debts, what's the ruling on giving the debt, paying off the debts? Because as per the Australian government, when you die, your debt's waived off. So, yeah.
So, good luck for you, mashallah. You are lucky. You know, like you have nothing to pay. So, what's your question? Nothing to worry about. Like the government forgave you. That's it. That's it. You have nothing to worry about.
Assalamu alaikum. Thank you very much for the evening talks. That was really brilliant and overwhelming to see the amount of people that have actually come together to actually listen to you guys. So really for putting it together and giving us such lots of insight and lots of good information. So firstly to the Imam, one question, and then to Brother Bilal as well. with regards to the burial sites being booked in advance, what is the Islamic ruling as according to that? I was sort of wondering if you could just probably explain that a bit more. It might be a question that all of us have, but we never sort of do ask, so I'm sort of asking that question for myself and possibly others in the audience that might have that question as well. So that's a question that you can probably answer. And then Brother Bilal, excellent talk. If we had to set up a time to catch up with you, you put your email address and numbers there. How long does it usually take to set up a will? You know, what are the sort of requirements and how do we sort of go about doing that if we had to? And you could probably answer that once. Thank you.
So are you asking about like the way?
Is it allowed for us to actually invest in buying a burial site before?
Okay. So you are asking, you want to buy like five plots, and after, like, your intention is after like 5 years or 6 years you want to sell them because of the percentage is going up. Is that what you are asking?
Is it okay for us to buy a burial site without really knowing where we would be and if we would actually die here?
You die in some other country, somewhere else. What happens then?
Because it's sort of defined.
Yeah. So
Defined. That's what I think.
sorry?
Because the other places, the burial is a collective responsibility. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Rather than
So if you are planning, if I were in your shoes, if I'm planning after 3 years, or if I'm planning like not to live here, I would not buy a burial place. So if I want like, for example, at the beginning, if I want to live here forever, so at the beginning I buy a burial place. Okay? So if I make an intention, or if I decide after 3 years or 5 years I'm moving overseas or moving to another place, you can sell that place, and that's very simple, and you move over there.
so it is allowed.
Yeah, it is allowed.
In regards to the process, so basically if you were to do a will with me, I would send you an information sheet, you would complete it, send it back to me, we'd have an initial appointment, I'd ask you about what you want to put in your will, and I would prepare the will, send it to you, and get you to come to the office to finalise the will. That process can take around 2 weeks, depending on your availability, my availability, and how everything pans out. Okay, and just in addition to what the Brother Bilal, like, as you know, there is a certain condition to meet before you meet the Brother Bilal and go through the will. And we get as well a promise from Brother Bilal, anyone attend this session, inshallah, will have 10% discount from Brother Bilal. We try to get 50%, but it didn't work. Inshallah. Yes, next question. Yeah, okay.
Just a quick question for Mr. Bilal. Thank you very much for the presentation and everything is so far. I just want to emphasize what's the value of the next of kin against guardian, against I just want to know what the next of kin can be. Is it spontaneous? If somebody passed away, we know next of kin is the person you deal with. Is that true? Or?
So next of kin is a general term that's used across the community, particularly in situations like if someone's taken to hospital, you know, the medical staff will look for a next of kin. If that person who's sick and they can't make decisions, they don't have capacity, they'll look for a next of kin. But these days we have an advanced care directive. So obviously that's the only binding way to ensure that someone in the family or someone else can make decisions on behalf of the person who's lost capacity. In the sense of a will, so post-death, next of kin doesn't really mean much. Am I answering the question or not?
Just I feel like we undervalue the next of kin, which is well-known knowledge. The wife, the spouse will take care of that.
So I mean,
I do have to nominate next of kin.
Are you talking in the context of a will?
Will or after or like barrier or barrier of death. But I need to know the both of them, which were more. So next of kin, I believe, which is well known to us, that can do both. But I'm not too sure now where we sit, because
if there's a will, then you've appointed an executor. The executor, the wasi, will control what happens and in terms of like burial. They'll determine where the deceased is buried, and they'll deal with the funeral home. If there's no will, no executor,
yes,
and let's say there's an issue in regards to, you know, an autopsy needs to be done, then they will look for the next of kin, who will be, for example, spouse or child or whoever. That only really comes into it in the context of a will. If there isn't a will, and if there isn't an executor, then the authorities will have no choice but to look for a next of kin. They'll have to deal with the next of kin. But a lot of things can happen, because who is that next of kin if there's two sons, son and a daughter,
which
two daughters?
We believe elder son.
Well,
We
it's
believe
not
that
that
wife,
simple.
and
Yeah, I mean, that might be a cultural thing, but it can create issues within the family. Because if there's, you know, 2 or 3 kids, they're in the same class, each of them could be a next of kin. So who are the authorities going to deal with? And if they collectively can't come to an agreement, it creates issues. So that's why really the best way forward is to have a valid will, have a power of attorney, and have an advance care directive. And not rely on this concept of next of kin, which could mean anything at any particular time.
in front of the court, this next of kin can carry value in absence of everything.
If there's nothing else,
Yes.
if there's nothing else, potentially, but it opens up a can of worms, because who is that next of kin? As I said, if you've got multiple children, it's not just a case of the eldest one's going to be the next of kin, and you know
And the spouse.
the authorities are going to. Well, if there's a spouse, then yeah, it would be the spouse.
That's
Yeah.
what I do believe. So,
You're relying on there being a spouse there.
yes.
You know, a lot while we don't know who's going to be around. So, look, it is a word that is used, and the authorities will look for a next of kin, but that's only if there is an advance care directive in place and a will.
Alright. Thank you very much. Yeah, brother.
Assalamu alaikum, for organizing this event. So this is the second session that I'm attending about the graveyard, which is really promising. So we are really happy that it is gone this far. So my question is about the buying the grave, and you said that if we are by 2024, and you said this will be able to buy by installment. Would you mind to share directly upfront how much we have to pay, and for the rest of the payment, how we will be able to organize that one?
Okay, thank you very much. So far, we were expecting to get at least the 20% upfront of the total amount before we start the partial payment share. But we prefer the full amount if we can. But before we get the other question, before I lose the connection with the computer again, I will show you just the technique before you start. So if you can see, so this the technique, the ACA, they work very hard to get it, because we thought a lot about different opinion and we couldn't get it, because as you know, as traditional Muslim, when someone passes away, someone will jump inside the hole to make sure that this is directed to Mecca. But because under 1.2 meter, especially for the 3 levels, it's going to be almost 2.5 meters. So that's why we have to use this technique. They put like a panel like that. They put the body in this direction. Of course, the face directed to Mecca, and then it will go down like automatically. Can you please press the? Yeah, you can see.
Look at the small screen.
So yeah, as you can see, it's going slowly. There's no one who can jump in, and then the platform that on the top will be the things between the soil and the body. So we may expect like we face some challenge with the community because some family member would like to jump in, but by law we cannot do it. So that's why we have to educate the community about this one. And this so far is the only option we have. If anyone for you have different idea how to do it properly, like complying with the law and the Sharia, we are happy to listen. But this is the only option we have so far. This only
for the sisters.
I don't know myself.
Yeah, so that's the latest we get so far. Okay, if you have any different idea, please let us know. But we are not allowed to anyone to jump in. We thought about the ladders, we thought about the other things. It didn't work. This is the only safe and secure option so far until we find different shell idea. Yes,
Assalamu alaikum. Oh, thank God. Now the sisters have the mic. Hopefully, you have a few questions. Now, with the purchase of the grave, suppose I have bought it, but my spouse it passes away before me. Is it transferable within the family?
Yes, it is.
Okay. And another question is regarding the will. If I have an overseas relative that I want to, appoint on the will, is there any barriers, like they have to be in Australia to come collect part of their will, or what's the process of transferring that to an overseas relative?
Yes, so that's a good question. There's no impediment to ensuring that the inheritance gets to someone overseas. There are lots of means. You can use an international bank transfer, you can use Western Union. It's the executor's responsibility to ensure that they fulfil the obligations in the will. So if a family member is entitled to a share, even if they're in another country, the executor needs to ensure that that money goes to that person in another country. Does that answer your question, sister?
Yes.
Okay.
Excellent. What was next? Okay, sorry. So the next one will be inshallah.
I feel almost too young to be having this conversation, but obviously it's a very necessary conversation, and I apologize for the silliness of the question. It's regarding the wasiyah. I just wanted to know what is the definition of a valid wasiyah, and as someone who travels quite a bit, I've been moving a lot, almost every year, subhanAllah. So with regards to a traveler's will, or just your normal wasiyah as well, and in terms of just how often life changes, whether it's a debt that you've already paid or someone that owes you money, all those necessary changes that needs to be added or done to your wasiyah, how are those changes done, and done that in a way that it's still valid, but also just in terms of how life is right now, whether people have to take all their belongings and rush and leave whatever country they are in, or whether there's a fire, or whether there's destruction of property, what is the best format for a wasiyah to be held in? Is it digital? Is it printed? Where should it be kept? Etc., etc., etc.
First question about what is a valid wasiyah? Is it a legal perspective? Did you want to step to this slide?
So when it comes, as I mentioned in the talk, when it comes to the definition of a valid wasiyah from Islamic perspective, here I'm talking about fiqh. I'm not talking about when I say Islamic wasiyah, I'm not talking about the legal will that they are going to do here in Australia. Okay, I'm talking from Islamic perspective. What the majority of the scholars gave a definition when it comes to wasiyah, the term wasiyah. Okay, so making an arrangement like a document or giving an authority to a person to make arrangement for 1/3 of what you left of your assets or your estate. Okay, so taking into account that when you perform this wasiyah, when you, for example, you tell the other person or when you write it, it is valid as long as when you distribute this 1/3, you don't write, I want to spend this money building a church or a nightclub or for example buying alcohol. This is it becomes invalid. Or when you include in your Islamic wasiyah, okay, more than 1/3. In this case, it becomes invalid as long as, like, the inheritors, they approve of it. So if you include, for example, if you make a wasiyah for half of your assets and all the members of the inheritors, they approve of it, then it becomes valid. So that's the definition of a valid wasiyah. So when it comes to legality, all the logistics, inshallah, Brother Bian will tell us.
So from a legal perspective, for a will to be valid, it must meet the formal requirements. So for example, it must be written, it must be signed in the presence of 2 independent witnesses at the same time, so that provided the formal requirements are met, it would be a valid will. In terms of your question about, this day and age, you could be here, you could be in another country, the circumstances might require you to travel for whatever reason. So long as you have assets in Australia, it is very important that you have a will here. If it gets to the point where you've travelled overseas for whatever reason, you sell your assets here, you pack up and you leave, and there's no, there's no likelihood you're going to come back in the short term, then you probably don't need a will here. If you're going to have assets here, you will need a will here, and as your circumstances change, you can amend your will. Amending a will is not a very difficult exercise, particularly if you've done a will with a lawyer. They'll have your will on the computer system, and all they'll need to do is pull it up, make some amendments to suit your current circumstances, get you to re-sign it, and you're done. As far as your question about, digital versus, non-digital, so here in South Australia, during COVID, there was some scope for people to sign wills remotely, but in the current circumstances, the expectation is that you're going to be in, for example, in the lawyer's office and sign the will in their presence. That's really, I don't want to say it's the only way, but most lawyers won't really agree to anything else. So that's the way it needs to be now. However, there are cases which indicate that, for example, a DVD or a digital will can be accepted by a court, depending on the circumstances. But I guess the point I would raise is I wouldn't rely on that because there's no guarantee. The best way to do a will is to do it the old-fashioned way, which is basically on paper. Make sure that the provisions are all valid and they make sense, and you're giving everything away. You're not going to leave, an intestacy where there are things that you haven't given away, and it's been signed properly in the presence of 2 independent witnesses, done properly. That's the safest way. Did we address your questions, sister? Or was there something that we've missed?
Just in terms of who holds the will, you said you've got your DIY version. So if I DIY my wasiyah, who keeps the will? What if I kept it on my Google Drive or something to that effect? Is what I'm saying. Where do I store it?
Yeah. So let's assume that it's on paper, right, to begin with. So you can hang on to the will yourself. You can leave it in. Some lawyers will have a safe custody register. If they don't have a safe custody register, basically you would need to look after it. You could put it in a safe deposit box in a bank. You could put it in a lockable safe or filing cabinet at home. The obligation is on you to look after it. If, let's say, the home burnt down and you lost that will, someone like a lawyer can give evidence that the copy that they have on their file was a reflection of the original, so it's not the end of the world. If you didn't do a proper physical will, and you did like a online or digital will, essentially there is a chance that the court could accept that if that reflected your last wishes as at the time of death. But there's a risk that a court may not accept that. So to make sure you do a will in accordance with the formal requirements on paper, signed in the proper way, you're eliminating or you're reducing the risks that the will may not be accepted. So basically, if it were digital, where are you going to keep it? It's going to have to be online, but I wouldn't recommend that practice. The best practice is to do it the old-fashioned way, on writing, and to ensure that it meets the formal requirements.
I think she's asking, how would the people find out about it?
Is that the question?
I think so. So the authority or the executor or the follow-on. The person has died, who would know that there is a will somewhere on this universe?
So presumably, if you've appointed an executor, it's because you've got a close relationship with them. So they're going to find out that you've passed away, right? As the executor, it's their obligation to fulfil the requirements of the will. So it's the executor, once they get notification of death, to track down the original will and then apply for probate. We don't have time to get into the ins and outs of probate, but basically get the court to approve that it was a valid will, and then they follow what's in the will. So pay the debts and testamentary expenses, distribute the balance to the beneficiaries as has been indicated in the will. So step 1, find out about the death. Step 2, locate the will. Now, there is no formal register in Australia where all wills are kept. We don't have that. The Law Society of South Australia have a register where it's like a database where people can record the fact that they've done a will, not put a copy of the will in there, just their name and details and when they did the will. That way, for example, that family member forgot if you did a will or couldn't find the will, they could contact the Law Society and the Law Society would say, yes, this person did a will at present lawyers on this date. And that would then facilitate an inquiry for you or the executor or the family member to track down the will or where it was done and help them in that regard. But it's not foolproof. The best thing is if you've done a will, you inform your family that you've done a will, you've told them where the will is kept, at home, in a bank, whatever, and inshallah when the time comes, they'll know where to go.
You need the password.
Password, if it's digital, but I don't recommend that.
I know the password. They can give it.
Yeah, sorry, first advice with the woman, that's what she did the microphone. But I promise I will give it to mine if no one. Yes,
Assalamu alaikum everyone. Thank you for coming and giving us very useful information. I came all the way from Elizabeth, so we don't have bigger mosque over there for women. There is a small mosque, but not enough space for women. I'm so happy that we have a mosque over there, inshallah one day. I have questions from my mom. She bought a burial land. Like she doesn't know which spot is she wants to be. She wants to choose. Can she choose now? Because she bought it last year and she paid in full, so she doesn't have any idea.
Yeah. So, Brother Aaron, you heard the question. All right. So. Aaron is the one who's going to number all the 1,000 grave. He promised to give it me today, but he hasn't finished. So hopefully by Monday or Tuesday we'll have this one. I'm trying to push him in front of you to finalize the number. As long as the numbers has finalized, inshallah we are going to pay to the 133 people who already pay in full and give them the first opportunity to allocate their plot number. So, but we'll go from the first person who buy it till the 133 because as you know, everyone would like to buy number 1, okay? And because it is going to be in front of the mosque, and that's why I'm begging you to buy all these good numbers because you can sell it after 2 years with double price and you can make money on it. I'm kidding. Okay. But inshallah in the next week we are going to know. But if you pay in full, inshallah we can.
Yeah, so how we should you guys want to call them?
Okay, cool. That's good question. So inshallah we are going to have another community meeting with those who already paid in full. And then we're going to have 3 people or authority on that meeting. One from the Islamic Society, one from the ACA, and we have to have GP as well. We want to have GP, and who are for those who are already paid in full, inshallah they will transfer the site on the spot, and we give you the document, and then you can have your own site. Okay, so inshallah we are going to send you invitation and email, and inform you what the next. But I'm still waiting for.
Okay, I trust it.
Okay, good, thank you.
Assalamu alaikum. Are there some requirements for a valid guardian or power of attorney? Like, does he need to be Australian? Like, can we choose, nominate guardian from overseas for the kids, or it will be Australian and Australian?
So, in terms of a guardian, it can be someone overseas, but you need to think about the practical side of things. So, for example, if you pass away with some law and let's say you don't have a wife, so you were the sole guardian, and you've appointed someone in another country, are they going to be able to get a visa and travel to Australia quickly? If not, the government's going to have to potentially put them with a family, Department of Child Protection, you're going to have to put them in care, under the care of another family, may not be a Muslim family, right? Who knows? Until that guardian is able to travel to Australia to look after your child. So yes, you can pick someone overseas, but practically speaking, probably not the best of ideas. Same applies to an executor of a will. You can appoint someone overseas, but they're going to have to travel here. So they're going to be able to get a visa. How long is it going to take them to come here? Meanwhile, the assets are frozen. Nothing gets paid for, debts aren't paid, nothing can be distributed until the executor gets here. So what you could do is you could appoint a really close friend, as like a backup in case your family member couldn't come here. Then your family member can revoke their appointment, and then your next in line, so your close friend can basically assume that position and take over.
Can the executive itself nominate the next person? So if he's an overseas, he cannot come. Can he nominate some local one?
Why am I getting all the hard questions? Like the person who you appoint, if they're overseas, it's not up to them to be appointing someone new.
Oh.
It's up to the person who's written the will. So what I would suggest is you have 1, 2, 3, 4 if you're really worried about 1, 2 and 3 not being able to do it, and then the fourth one. But the first one can't say, oh, my mate in this town over there is going to go and do it. No, it doesn't work like that.
Jointly or separately?
You can appoint executors and guardians jointly, but then they both have to work together, so that creates
or
difficulty.
Or separately.
Jointly or separately, yeah. You can specify that in the will, yeah.
How well Islamic, we'll give you after, but some days
Thank you very much for your time and for arranging this event. Yes, just a question you mentioned about the advanced care directive that I can do it myself and I don't need a lawyer. So it will not go to the process where it's kept somewhere. It's witnessed by someone. How can this be a legal document?
Yeah. So firstly, most lawyers do advanced care directives. I'm probably the only one who says to clients, just do it yourself to save on money, right? But the reason why I say that is because these documents were actually designed for people to do without lawyers. You can download the form online, and you can even download an example form to follow, right? So you fill it in as best as you can, you take it to a JP at a local library, and you sign it in their presence. Then you can even go one step further than that. You can give a copy to your GP, because if something happens to you, the authorities will inevitably contact your doctor, or they'll write back to the doctor. So it's probably a good idea for your doctor to be aware that you've done one, and of course your family members and whoever you decide to be the substitute decision maker on your behalf.
Assalamu alaikum. Jazakallahu khair for all your efforts, and may inshallah Allah reward you for all this. My question was regarding the grade, the cost of the grade. So is it the absolute or the actual cost of the grade that is being transferred down to the purchaser? Is that, or does it actually cover the entire burial cost, or just the land that the purchaser is buying? And if there is any additional cost for burial project, for example, logistics, what are the additional costs that include in the burial? That's the first question. The second question is, you did mention during your talk that the land is for a period of time. So when a purchaser purchases a block of land as a grave, does that mean that that block of land is on his name indefinitely, or is it a lease? If in case a lease, then what is the period of the lease, and what happens after the lease?
Okay, cool. Thank you very much for this question. But I need another 1 hour session to answer your question. So that's why Brother Walid directly give you the pamphlet, because all your question and answers in this pamphlet. So yes, so there is certain time so we can have it, but it's like a bit complicated, and that's why I need really 1 hour to answer it. But inshallah, everything, and if there is still any question about it, inshallah, we can have separate session, inshallah, we'll answer everything. Yeah, so this price is only for the plot itself. There is additional cost for the funeral themselves, because as you know, when someone passes away, we need certain document like death certificate, and then transport the body and go to the corona and come back to the washing facility, and after that transport it to the. So these all things we separated in something called funeral service. Alhamdulillah, the society has already established this service last year, and it's working very well. We have our vans, our team for it. We have separate team for the funeral service, and they're doing very well. And there is many other funeral service, but this, up to my knowledge, is the only Islamic funeral service so far. Okay, so there is cost at the moment for maximum 1,500, based on how many transportation trip and how many people get involved and how far you want to go and so on. So if you want to ask more question about it, this is the lady, Filza. Okay, ask her all that question. Thank you very much.
The weekend different.
According to the Australian law, how well the Islamic will is acceptable in the eye of Islam, in the eye of the Australian law.
So we're quite lucky because in Australia we have a concept called freedom of testation. So the authorities, it's a secular country, the authorities allow people to write wills however they wish. You'll see Australian families where they give everything to one son at the exclusion of everyone else. Farming families, they'll pass the farm on to the son. So you can write your will however you wish, and no one can say that an Islamic will is inconsistent with our laws. It is consistent with our laws. However, it's not unfettered. It's not without conditions. And I mentioned before on one of the slides, if a family member has been inadequately provided for, a judge can step in and say, we need to provide for that family member. So for example, you have 2 sons. They get equal shares, right? So not even an Islamic will. Let's just say any will. In Islamic will they get equal shares anyway. But let's just say 2 sons, they get equal shares. One son's a brain surgeon. One son's on Centrelink. That one son can challenge the will, go to court, and the judge may or may not, depending on the circumstances, say, well, that son needs more because he's on Centrelink. He doesn't have a job. He's in need of more money. The brain surgeon's doing really well, driving a Ferrari, having a good life. The judge can give more to the other son. But it always depends on the circumstances. But no one can say that the Islamic will is not inconsistent. As I mentioned before, the new Succession Law Act even puts more emphasis on the wishes of the testator. So inshallah, with time, that should help us. No guarantee, because the court can still step in if the circumstances are there, and they can take into account other circumstances such as like the relationship between the deceased and the person who's challenging, the financial need, whether there was a dependency in place. But to answer your question, the Islamic principles, fortunately, are consistent with our ability to write a will as per our wishes.
Okay, Jazakallah khair. It's almost Fajr time, but inshallah we'll go.
It won't take too long. Just a quick question for those who have bought the burial plots and paid in full. You said they'll be contacted. Just roughly when that will be done? Is it in 2 weeks' time, in a month's time? Second question is, what's the best way to contact in the event of death? Is it just the numbers that are on here? And the third question I have is, what happens to
people who don't have a burial plot, and in the event of death, what sort of happens?
So just what was the first question? I couldn't hear it.
When will the people be contacted that have paid in full for the plots?
Okay, cool. So we have our own accountant department. Inshallah, they are following on a monthly basis how much each person they paid and how much is roughly to finish. So Brother Berbisi and Sister Frida, they're following up and they give us update every single month about it. So as soon as you pay in full, if you are paying partial, they will contact you. They say, look, this you are in full payment now, and you can transfer the site. But as I mentioned before, to transfer the site to you, we have 3 people like Islamic Society, ACA, and GP to transfer you the legal document. For the contact details, it is all in the flyers. And if someone hasn't bought a plot and something happened, so you can buy it on the day of the death and contact the funeral service. They will give you all the document, and they will on the same day we transfer you the site and everything. So will be conducted on the same day. Hopefully I answered that. Okay. Another question? You sure no one? Okay. You sure? Okay.
In Australia, how many actually? In Adelaide, how many Muslims are registered with the Islamic Society? You can say 40,000 Muslims live in Adelaide. How many are actually registered as members of the Islamic Society?
Okay, we don't have because every year we have different one, and based on our constitution, every 4 years we have to renew the list. So at the moment on the details database, we have almost 4,000 people. But the 40,000 people, I'm talking about all the state, especially that every 6 years we add another 10,000. We don't have the technique to follow up on them, but they know what is going on. But to register their name is as you know, it's very hard to push anyone to register their name. But the 40,000 is based on the Australian Bureau of Statistics. They release it every 6 years.
Just a follow-up question about this in regards to the will, because not everyone is putting his will, like you mentioned, and it's very important. Could it be legally something to be done for you to be the executors for Muslims who are actually under the Islamic Society, so that unless there is a will, that will overtake?
Okay, so just to understand that question, that's so can you repeat that? I couldn't.
Automatically, could it be not legally done that every Muslim in South Australia to be you will be the executors as a society unless there's a will, so that to avoid it going to
by default.
I don't know if it's legal allowed.
Volunteer.
We wish to, but
volunteer.
You tried.
I don't think you do wish to, because it's a huge obligation, and you wouldn't appoint a society, you would appoint someone within the society, an individual. And can you imagine if they were the executor for every Muslim? Every time a Muslim dies, they have to pay the debts and funeral expenses, they have to work out what the assets are, they have to dissolve companies potentially, and it's so much work. In fact, a lot of people like to appoint lawyers, and most lawyers nowadays don't accept appointments because it's just too much work. So,
But brother, they can nominate if they wish, is that right?
Not an association, but someone within the association, yes.
So they cannot do it as a...
I'm not aware of that ability. I can look into it for you, but I'm not aware of it.
Just if there's someone they're on their own, they don't know anybody and stuff, would they go to the lawyer? Would that be acceptable?
Yes.
So your question is if they don't have anyone in the community to appoint, then they appoint a lawyer to be the executor?
No, they appoint the Islamic Society.
Yeah.
So I'm just trying to see...
It would need to be a formal position, like the secretary of the Islamic Society.
But not the whole organization.
No, I'm not aware of any means to do that. And it'd be too problematic, because what does that mean? Who in the Islamic Society of South Australia would do it? it would have to be a particular person within the Islamic Society of South Australia. And then is that person going to want responsibility?
Yeah, no, I know, but I'm just saying, so it has to be an individual,
yes,
rather than an organization.
An imam, did you say? Yeah, you could appoint him. Actually, I know many clients have appointed imams, but I wouldn't recommend it if I was the imam.
I know, but would that, if they say the imam of, say, Mariam Masjid, or...
No, you have to spell it out.
They just have to say the name.
Yeah. Yeah. Otherwise, there's too much uncertainty.
Yeah. That's for clarity.
Okay. Thank you very much, brothers and sisters. May Allah reward you. If you can give big applause for Brother Bilal and Imam Abdullah for the big work they have done. Thank you very much. And inshallah, we will follow up again and again about this project because, as you know, it is ongoing. May Allah reward you. Jazakumullah khairan. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.